Here this weekend, y'all are going to be electing 28 delegates. It is entirely possible the men and women gathered here will decide this entire primary, will decide this nomination. I am here asking for you to stand with us, to elect delegates who are supporting me, to stand with us together, because if Republicans unite, we win.
There is Ted Cruz in North Dakota last night trying to get those delegates, the 28 delegates from the state of North Dakota. 25 will be picked today. We're back with our roundtable now, joined by Hugh Hewitt from the Salem Radio Networks, ABC's Donna Brazile, Democratic strategist, and Matthew Dowd, independent, and Juan Williams from Fox News, also the author of a new book, We the People. Congratulations on that. There we see it right there. And Donna, let me begin with you. You've counted delegates on the Democratic side at a lot of different conventions. I see you working your pad right there. But let's talk about the Republicans. You've got this big contest coming up on Tuesday in Wisconsin. Most people look at Wisconsin and think if Ted Cruz wins big there, the chances of a contested convention go through the roof.
Well, I think there's a chance of a contested convention because for Donald Trump to be able to get into Cleveland with 1,237, he has to accumulate 55% of the remaining delegates on the table, about 848.
That's before Tuesday.
That is correct. 848 delegates still available on the Republican side. We have more than 2,000 on the Democratic side. The Republican rules are temporary rules, meaning until they actually, and I heard the chairman, until they actually put that gavel down, some of these rules can be changed. So if Donald Trump is unable to march into Cleveland with the requisite number, you're looking at a contested convention.
Well, and that's the question I want to bring to Matthew Dowd. Is it really Donald Trump? It's really first ballot or bust for him, isn't it?
I think Donald Trump's highest number will be the first round of voting. That'll be his highest number he ever gets at a convention, which he knows why he needs to get 1237 in the course of this. I think the odds of a contested convention dramatically rise if he loses Wisconsin. It's going to be a little bit like Robert Frost. We'll be down a road less traveled when that happens, diverged in Wisconsin. The fascinating thing to me, everybody points at history in a contested convention. They say, well, it happened here, it happened 8 times, it happened there. This is fundamentally different because we have not had a contested convention when 2 things mattered. First, media. Everybody has a smartphone. This idea that you can make decisions in back rooms is gone. 24-hour cable, everything. It'll be completely transparent. We've never had that before. And the second thing we've never had before is when we had primaries and caucuses leading into a contested convention. Every other time before 1972 or 1968, it basically was chosen by party leaders, and they would gather together. You now have millions of people who have voted, who are going to watch a contested convention decided by delegates, and we've never had that before.
And Hugh Hewitt, the contest has already begun. We're seeing that fight in North Dakota right now. They're fighting for each congressional district in Colorado this week. There are fights in the state of Tennessee over who's going to be seated at the convention. State of Louisiana, state of South Carolina. This is a battle that has already begun.
Oh, it is. I think in Cleveland you're going to see Juan's book, We the People, and they're going to put a poster over it, We the Delegates, because that's actually, it's about 2,743 living, breathing human beings. And there are 3 strategies. Trump says it's 1980, and I'm Reagan, I'm going to win the big map. And you've got Cruz saying, no, it's 2004, and I'm going to turn out our base and win the narrow map. And you've got John Kasich saying, no, it's 1988, and I'm going to win the George H.W. Bush strategy of changing things around. They each have a plausible argument, but they are running into the reality of these 2,473. And I was saying in the green room, if someone comes up with an app to track the social media feeds of those 2,473 people, they will have 20 million followers because the delegates are the key.
Somebody's out there trying to make a lot of money right now. Are you pretty sure there's going to be a contested convention?
I've been predicting it since May of 2014 in the Weekly Standard. It's happening.
It's happening. Meanwhile, Juan Williams, your Fox News colleague, Karl Rove, of course, strategist for George W. Bush, said that this convention could easily turn to what he called a fresh face, may want to turn to a fresh face, not one of the candidates in there right now. And you did see Reince Priebus right there concede in the interview. Once you get past that first ballot, all bets are off.
That's true. I mean, in fact, my theory is that there's an invisible name on the ballot in Wisconsin. That's Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, the highest elected Republican official in the country. And I think someone who's already tried to say, Trump's kind of politics, not to my taste. He won't do it by name. He won't go after Trump directly, but he's doing it. And I think you're going to see he was the vice presidential pick behind Mitt Romney. And
he keeps saying it's not going to happen.
Yeah, not going to happen. But believe me, once you get to an open convention, then the question becomes, well, who is the fresh face that you mentioned, George? Who could possibly stand in? And I think then you get to lots of issues. You could, for example, Scott Walker, another Wisconsinite, is going to be there. Could Scott Walker, who's had success, be somewhat of a rebirth for the Republican Party. Paul Ryan, though, is a very fresh face. And then you go into some of the other governors that are around the country. Are they looking for maybe a woman, more diverse look to the Republican Party, which we saw Reince Priebus, another Wisconsinite, call for in this
autopsy? But then
autopsy.
that gets to your point. There've been a lot of voters who've already put their hearts on the line.
This is the problematic situation I think the Republican Party is in. Do they go for somebody new and fracture the party? Do they go for the leader, Donald Trump, and fracture the party? Do they go for Ted Cruz, who has a very difficult time winning a general election, and fracture the party? I think the fascinating question will be, is do the delegates decide differently than the voters? Which means is that for the voters, electability has not mattered. Whether you can win a general election has not mattered. The two leading candidates for the Republicans right now, Donald Trump and Ted Cruz, really can't win a general election for all intents and purposes. Will they go for somebody that can actually win a general election? And that's actually John Kasich's strategy, is get to a convention and tell people you're the only one that can beat Hillary Clinton.
Donald Trump has to win New York and win New York big. As you know, there are 12 congressional districts in and around New York City. He has to win all of these congressional districts, plus try to pick and choose a couple of places upstate in order to, I think, go into the convention with maybe 50 delegates short.
And there's an important point about New York. If he falls below 50%, he's above 50% in the polls right now.
Right.
If he gets above 50%, it's winner take all.
Winner
He gets
take
all
all.
the delegates. If not, it's going to be a divided.
It's divided, and George, let me tell you something. Their rules are so strange on the Republican side that right now in Georgia, Ted Cruz is picking and choosing congressional districts where he can win some of Donald Trump delegate slots. I mean, because remember, you have slots, not delegates, until you actually go through the process. And that's why I think this week Mr. Trump hired Paul Manafort, somebody who is seasoned at knowing how to deal with a very contested convention in order to begin tracking his delegates. But it might be too late in about 6 or 7 states.
Hugh Hewitt, I talked to Reince Priebus also about this pledge, fraying completely, kind of fell apart this week. You've been saying you would support the nominee, even if it is Donald Trump.
I'm a Republican. I'm going to support the nominee. I thought the chairman made a lot of news with you, though, when he talked very candidly about the rules being, it's not Rule 40B, which I spent some time talking to Rove about and talking to John Kasich about this week. There are no rules, and the rules will be whatever the Rules Committee says. 112 people meet the week before, 2 from every state, 2 from every delegation. And there are a lot of people out there waiting to see what does that Rule Committee do. I was thinking about, I had dinner this week with Matt Parlow, who's a dean at the Marquette School of Law. He's coming out to be the dean at my law school at Chapman. And he says in Wisconsin, the surge to Ted Cruz is so enormous because Scott Walker is leading it. So if you get to a convention, it could go as one, believe
to Walker
Paul,
or to Ryan?
To either. They're both very interesting
How could Scott Walker get picked by the convention after he got knocked out so early?
Because Rule 26 to 42, they are temporary. And Rule 12 basically invalidated Rule 1 through 11. I read the Republican. We have to know each other's rules. Their rules can create the scenario that...
I'm talking politics, not rules.
I see no way that Scott Walker, I could see a window where Paul Ryan could, but again, that's going to cause lots of fractures in the parties between the anti-establishment and the establishment. The other thing I think is important in this process is we've had all this talk of Donald Trump and the contested convention. What Bernie Sanders has done, in my view, is just as significant or more so than what against Hillary Clinton in the course of this campaign and how he's conducted himself and the fractures he's revealed in the course of the Democratic Party.
I want to bring that to Donna. You know, Wisconsin, it does look right now, you can't know for sure that Bernie Sanders is going to do well, may win. The big state, though, is New York. If he beats Hillary Clinton in her home state...
It shifts the narrative. I mean, look, can I go home now? We're already looking at a process that will take us until June 14th on the Democratic side, because the District of Columbia will get the last word. And given the fact that we have a lot of delegates in the District of Columbia, super and as well as regular, Bernie Sanders should do well in Wisconsin. It's tailor-made for him. It's an open primary. Independents can come and play in the Democratic or the Republican primary. And it also has a progressive tradition, Dane County, Madison. So Hillary has to keep it competitive in Wisconsin, but she got to come to New York, and like Donald Trump, she has to win all of these, what I call congressional districts, but she also has to do very well upstate.
She's going to do very well. I mean, look, she was a senator from this state, New York State, 8 years, re-elected, remember?
Right.
And remember, she lives here, so this is her adopted home state. There's no indication given the makeup of the population of Democratic voters here, that Bernie Sanders can come in and take the black and Hispanic vote away from Hillary Clinton. And I will say this, Hillary Clinton, right now, it seems to me, not only is she going to do well in New York, Bernie Sanders would have to not only win New York, George, he'd have to then go out to California, win California.
He's got a long way to go.
And then he'd have to get the superdelegates that are Donna.
Thank you for pressing Senator Sanders on the Hitler analogy. He did make a Hitler analogy. He walked it back when he talked to you, and that's part of the... Donald Trump is not Hitler. Donald Trump is not Mussolini, like other people have written. He's a very amateuristic, sometimes, campaign, but he is not that, and you pushed him, and Bernie walked it back today, this morning.
Very quickly, and that is all we have time for today. Great discussion. Thank you all very much. We'll be right back after this from our ABC stations.